Tracy Brown, and I'm an education consultant with AVI-SPL. Welcome to the video about linking your content and assessments through the use of title pages, brought to you by Baltimore City Public Schools. So we're going to talk a lot today about using title pages when you use your Smart Response system in order to link your assessments and your content. But first, I want to start by talking about when you would want to use a title page versus when it's actually more appropriate to just leave the title page out. So let's start on the left-hand side here. We've got a couple of bullet points. First off, you'd want to make sure that you use a title page when you're delivering a summative assessment. If I'm at the end of a unit and I want to give the students a 25-question test and I want to start the assessment, run it all the way through until the end, gather grades that I'm going to put into my grade book and that the students are accounted for, then I want to make sure that I have a title page in order to pull all of this information together and get that grade into my grade book. You also want to make sure that you use a title page when you're looking to gather some additional information from delivering assessments to your students. And that's really what we're going to focus on in this video. So more on this to come. Let's jump over to the right-hand side here, and we've got a couple of bullet points that'll let you know when it's more appropriate to actually just skip the title page altogether. First of all, if you want the option to start and stop each individual question rather than run an entire assessment from start to finish, please know that even if these are individual questions, you will still get grades in the grade book. So if what I would like to do is have maybe more of a formative assessment, have one question that I'd like to ask the students, and then after asking that question, go back and review those results, their individual answers, talk about why the right answer was a better choice than some of the other distractors that were in there, and then the students could move on to the next question or even move on to the delivery of some new content before we ask another question. When you leave a title page out, the software will still grade all of the questions together that are in that notebook file, but without the title page, I can actually start one question, stop it, review that information with the students before we move on to the next question. So this is a great way to get a single grade out of a notebook file, but have that option to start and stop each question, as opposed to when you use a title page and you have to start at the beginning of the assessment and run through the entire set of questions before you can stop it. So let's come back to that bullet point that we said we were really going to focus on in today's video, and that is when to use a title page when you want to gather additional information from your assessments. So let's get into this additional information. First off, you'll access your title pages in your Smart Response tab. When you click on that tab, you'll see, of course, lots of icons that allow you to add questions to your page, including using instant questions or even importing questions that you have in a Word document or that you've used in ExamView. But you'll also see this option to insert a title page. So let me show you this. I'm going to click on my Response tab, and we'll see that that window opens exactly like the picture that was on the screen. So we're going to start with that title page option that comes up in the upper left-hand corner. And I'm going to bring us up a blank page, and we're going to click on that option that says title page. It opens a window for you that allows you to put in the information about the assessment that you're delivering for your students. First off, what is the title of your assessment? Very important field right here. We have to tell the software exactly what the topic, or title rather, is. And then the second field is the option to tell the software what type of assessment it is. When we click on the drop-down, you'll see that they give you some common assessment types like quiz, exam, or test, but then you've also got that option to create your own custom type of assessment. So we're going to tell the software that this is a midterm exam. And then you've got two additional fields at the bottom. But if you've noticed that red asterisk that comes up next to the title and type fields, you'll see in the window that it tells us these are required. Well, of course, you have to have a title for your assessment, and you do have to tell the software what type of assessment it is that you're delivering. So these two additional fields, subject and topic, are optional. But what you need to remember about your Smart Response system is that in addition to that instant grading feature, so you're no longer taking home a pile of papers, it's really about gathering data. And the more information you put into your Smart Response system when you're setting up your gradebook or creating your assessments, the more information you get out of your response system when you go back to looking at the grades and seeing the class or student's performance. And these two fields that we see here for subject and topic are two ways for you to get some of that additional information. How do my students do on this subject versus another subject? How do they do in one topic versus another? So these are two fields that you want to make sure you take the time to add some information rather than just skipping them because they're optional. So I'm going to put in for this assessment that my topic is mathematics. Excuse me, my subject is mathematics and my topic is algebra. Once we've got our fields all filled in, we click Add, and the software creates our title page for us and places it right into our notebook file. And from there, we would go on to add questions to the next page and continue on in the assessment creation. I've taken a minute to just create a couple of examples of what teachers commonly use in their subject fields and topic fields. But certainly you guys know what's appropriate for your classes, your content area, etc. So for example, under science, you might find subjects like chemistry and motion. And then topics would include under chemistry things like atoms and molecules or acids and bases. Under the subject motion, you might have topics that would include gravity and acceleration. If we take a look at the box down here for reading and language arts, your subjects might be things like reading and writing. And then your topics would include under reading, phonics or structure. And under the subject writing, you might have topics that include things like purpose or punctuation or grammar. So if you take the time to come up with the labels that you would want for your subjects and then the labels that you would want for your topics, again, this is a great way to use the response system to gather some additional information. So after we've delivered an assessment to our students, we would go into our Teacher Tools gradebook, and all of that information that we gathered by using those subject and topic fields would show up when we run reports. So if you take a look at this snapshot of Ms. Johnson's gradebook, on the left-hand side in that pale gray field, about halfway down on the page, you'll see an option that says Reports, and you've got 4 different types of reports that are available. You can run a student performance, class performance, student comparison, or class comparison. And these subject and topic fields will show up specifically when you run a student or class performance report. Now we're going to take a moment to look at a couple of quick samples of some of these reports, and then we'll actually step out to the gradebook and we'll run a report live. So I'm going to click on this first report that I have here, and I'm just going to bring it out so that it's a little larger and we can see it a little better. You can see this is a snapshot of a topic that a teacher put in. The topic was fiction. And overall, the class has about an 80% average on the topic fiction. So as the teacher, I would know that the class as a whole probably doesn't really need to spend a lot of time reviewing this topic fiction, because I would say an 80% average shows a pretty good grasp of this particular subject, or topic rather. Let's take a look at another sample of a report that we have right here. This one is results by subject. So we've got a fictional class here, and in this fictional class we see 4 different subjects that were placed in. We've got math, reading, SMART, and social studies. The students do best in reading, it's close with math, and they seem to need the most work in social studies, although they're fairly consistent and strong in any of them. Again, all the averages fall between the roughly 70 and 80% mark. Now we're going to look at a couple of the reports for individual students. So results by topic. We've got an individual student here who has an overall average of almost 95% on this topic numbers, whereas the class has an average of about 75% on the topic numbers. So we can see that this particular student does much better in this topic numbers than the class as a whole. Great information, particularly for a parent-teacher conference. And we've got one more example that we're going to bring out of a report that can be run for an individual student. Once again, this one is results by subject. The student's information is in blue, the class is in red, and we can see that in the subjects math and social studies, this particular student does much better than the class average. When we look at that subject SMART, we see that, wow, the student's average is a 50%, but so is the class. So I know that not only does this student need to review the information that we learned in this subject SMART, but the class as a whole really needs to spend more time on this particular subject. So these are just a couple of examples of some of the reports that can be run for an entire class or an individual student. Let's step out to the gradebook now. I'm going to go ahead and click on my teacher tools down here and bring this one up. And we're going to look at one of the additional reports that can be run. Let me click out of this and do that one again for you. We're going to run a class performance report, and I'm specifically going to choose this option down here, performance summary. We're going to pick my class called Biology 20. And I want to run a report that's just going to show me how the students did on the midterm exam versus the final exam. So I'm only going to select those two types. Remember that assessment type was one of the fields we put in when we created our title page. We click OK, and let's just preview this report. So we've actually got a lot of information in this report, and we're going to scroll past some of it so that we can get down just to what we were interested in looking at, which is the report that can be run on the assessment type. So the class average on the midterm exam was about 65%, and the average on the final exam was a little over 80%. So this information visually tells me as the classroom teacher that the students did exactly what I would hope they had done between the midterm and final, which is improve. So just a good way to get some graphic information about how your students individually are doing or how the class as a whole is doing on individual subjects, topics, and even individual types of assessments that you're delivering. Let's come back into that notebook file that we've been using. And we're going to wrap everything up by recapping some of the benefits of using your title pages. First, you'll know when students have mastered a subject and topic by monitoring their progress over time. For example, you can just ask the question, are grades improving as we learn more about a subject or topic like order of operations? Another benefit to using title pages is it allows you to make the most of the limited time you have to review content. You need to prepare for the midterm. You need to prepare for the final exam. You need to prepare for the standardized tests. As the teacher, I need to know where my class or an individual student stands on each subject and topic so that I can make the most of that review time. In preparation for the final exam, my students need a lot of review time on a subject like the Great Depression, but they really demonstrated a strong understanding of the American Revolution. So I know what I need to focus on and what we don't need to focus on. And lastly, this is a great way to get detailed information to share with an administrator, a parent, a special ed teacher, or even a team of teachers for grade level or content areas when you're attending a meeting about an individual student or class's overall performance during the school year. I can tell that Bill isn't working up to his potential because he clearly demonstrated an understanding of this topic prior to this date, etc., etc. So I hope today's video has helped you understand all the benefits of using your title pages when you're creating your assessments to link it back to your content so that you can really see what needs to be reviewed, what the students grasp, what the class grasps, etc. All right, everybody, go forth and be smart.